Thanks for staying with us on Point now. A United Nations Development Programme economic study has found that around 34% of middle-class households in South Africa are likely to fall into poverty as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown. Now, Financial Services Group has done a survey which shows that 72% of women living in South Africa consider themselves to be in survival mode. With lockdown, women reported less income and more pressure. Let's get more on this with Kenos Magosha from I Sanlam, who did that study. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Let's talk about that study and that 72% of respondents who describe themselves as in survival mode.
Good afternoon. With the research that we did, we found that we basically wanted to find out where women are at during this COVID situation. Particularly with the appreciation that some still have to work, but they also have to look after their families. So with the research, we then found that 7 in 10 women are basically saying that they're in survival mode, which basically means they're not able to focus on their long term, particularly even around financial planning aspects, and are just basically meeting daily needs and surviving day on day.
Mm-hmm. And what did you find in terms of how those women were spending, particularly during lockdown?
So what we did, because we wanted to understand their finances, we actually then asked that how are they spending more money? Are they becoming more money savvy during this time? And we found that about 5 in 10 are actually spending more on food and other expenses compared to before lockdown. But what also stood out was that there are women who actually are becoming more money conscious with appreciation that incomes are reducing, as we found about 6 in 10 of those surveyed had their incomes reduced. So there actually are some that are actually starting to be more money conscious and then spending less on living costs in general.
All right, so we've seen that 16% contraction in our GDP for the second quarter, annualized to about 51%. That UNDP report also says that South Africa's economy may not recover even in 2024. So what role then do women in general, and perhaps women in the survey, have to play in the economic recovery of the country, and is that possible?
So I think it's just taking a step back in terms of what research has shown over the years. So there's something that the UN itself and the International Monetary Fund says it's about smart economics. Smart economics is about enabling and empowering women to actually participate in the economy. So what we actually need to do is more of a systematic approach to the challenge to actually ensure how we actually plan our way out of this economic depression, that we actually ensure that women are better enabled to engage with the economic activity. So, but what's also important is that women also need to look at their own personal economies. So what I mean by that is almost like my day-to-day finances and how I'm planning today and for the future. And with that, it's basically starting from today and saying, can I adopt what I would refer to as a zero-based budgeting approach? So not necessarily just tweaking what I'm currently spending money on, but actually looking at where should I be spending money? What are the new priorities that I actually need to be spending money on that can enable progress, but secondly, that can actually enable financial resilience? And once I've got that base sorted, is then to say, in that conversation, is actually to engage with professional financial advice to say, how do I actually make sense of my money? Tap into that expertise so that I can actually say, I need to be saving for emergencies. As we have seen with this lockdown, that there was a need for some cash flow to supplement the reduction in income. And then second is to say that, I need to be enabling the future. So how can I actually now start saving for the future, whether it be for retirement, for education, which we have actually seen has helped to enable economies to grow. Okay. And then thirdly is then to say that I need to have some base to protect the gains that I make, right? So when you're actually making those gains, I need to make sure that I've got protection, and that engagement with professional advice will help you to ensure that you don't lose the gains that you actually make as you're recovering from this time as well. So, but it's also important to not neglect holistic well-being as well when you're actually going through this process.
I thought it was very interesting that you spoke about that when you wrote about the survey. Outside of speaking about financial advice, you were focusing on physical and mental wellness as a way of making sure that your finances are okay, and perhaps also on a larger level, the economy and how you work is okay.
Yeah, so I think what we tend to do sometimes, we try to fix one problem, right? And then not appreciating that there are different things that need to be optimized in the system itself. So when you actually take care of your wellness from a mental, emotional, and just psychological and physical well-being, it actually ripples over through to your financial well-being. So what we've also seen is that other research as well done elsewhere has also indicated that if your state of mind is not in the right place, if you're stressed and anxious and dealing with a lot of anxiety, you're likely to make poor financial decisions, which ultimately can lead to a vicious cycle when it comes to stress itself. So it's important that when actually fixing the financial aspects of our economies as women, we don't neglect that we look after our health and our minds and our emotions so that we don't trip up or derail the plans we're actually making on the financial side.
Kenos Magosha from Sanlam, thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon. It's time for a short break. I'll have your